right, welcome everybody to our latest Live Motocross podcast as we talk all things Motocross of Nations 2024 from what was an amazing event where Team Australia won their first ever title at the great event. So before we welcome Brian Jorgensen back again, former GP star, we'd like to thank our sponsors in 24MX, Dirt Store, Hook Silkaline and Dragon Energy for all the incredible support, as without them none of this would be possible. All right, welcome Brian, fresh off being at the Motocross of Nations in person, witnessing history, mate. Obviously pretty biased, me being an Australian, mate, but how awesome was it from your perspective just to be there? You're obviously super busy with the Blu Cru stuff, but what an event.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me back again. It was just every year, like also last year, I think it was an epic event. You have 100,000 people there looking and all this incredible talent and riders. That was like amazing. But again, this year, being in the UK, knowing the track, it was also a little bit of a memory down the lane for me. My last Motocross of Nation back in 2006 with Stefan there. So, but there was a lot of things going on, like I said, with the Blu Cru with Yamaha, and then actually being witness that Team Australia win their first Motocross of Nation was amazing. I had to leave like just as they went over the finish line jump, because I had to go back to Southampton and then finally fly back that evening to Alicante. So I didn't have the chance to celebrate or be close to the thing when they actually came off the track. But I saw some footages after, and that must be an amazing achievement for Team Australia. With Hunter and Jet, and the third rider was, I can never remember the name. You just mentioned like a minute, but I was like I said before, I actually thought he would be the weak link, but he rode really well and up to probably his best, probably what he will remember and look back at as well. And I think it was an amazing event. The crowd in the UK is always crazy. It's a fantastic track. With big jumps, very technical sections on the track, and you could really see who could ride a motorcycle and who could not ride a motorcycle. And that's the whole part of me, coming over and watch this. Of course, I have worked with Yamaha, but actually standing there and enjoying the view of how they actually approach the track. And because I've been a rider myself, you kind of have that feeling, when they're setting up a pass, how long it takes actually to organize things to be able to pass, like Eli Tomac, or in Geiser's point of view, passing Jet on the last lap for the win. I cannot even explain how difficult it is to set up passes with such a capacity rider, with such a legends and incredible rider in the sport that we have right now. In the US, Team Australia, but also here in Europe with Geiser and Prado and the massive talent that we have here, Coonan brothers and Katie Wolf, just seeing them battling out, I cannot explain this, if there's any better feeling.
Oh, mate, it was so awesome. And it was just racing all over was just excellent, from the youngsters, like you were saying, to the full heavy hitters, mate. And there was so many challenges they had to face throughout that week. And obviously the track was a very brutal edition of Madeley, that's for sure. There was a lot to navigate there. And then the weather with that misty rain that just caused so many issues with the goggles. The ruts were massive, sort of really deep. And then it's not just getting through the corners, it was jump faces, landings. It was so much to consider, so much focus, so much concentration, all while the vision's pretty bad. So it was just really key to get those starts. And you see throughout the weekend, Prado on the Saturday, especially Lawrence Brothers, Geyser, you just had to get those starts, were so important, put yourself in good positions. Same as Tomac, he was so impressive as well, mate. But just give us a little bit of a take on the weather, the track, just all those other things that were just making things so difficult.
Yeah, if we start on Saturday, which was obviously a little bit of a different issue, because the track was really soft leading up to the race, because they had a lot of rain from Wednesday. I spoke with the track designer and the track people, and they said we couldn't get on the track until late Wednesday, early Thursday morning. So all the jumps basically had like really dangerous, or you can say like places where it was really soft. And after the landings as well, it was really tricky as well. You had to land with such a perfection to not to go too long, because if you go too long and like kind of missing the ramp a little bit, your front wheel will sink in and you will have a massive end over. And the same on the other way, if you land a little bit too short, So you had to be so precise on 3 or 4 jumps on the track, like it was incredible. And you could see from the point of view from the 250 to the open to the MXTP class, the start was of course like really important. Prado went out and did what he did, take the start. He was probably like untouched on Saturday, thinking that there's nobody that can, get close to him, because he got in the front. He did things on the bike. I was standing there witnesses, and thinking, wow, the things that he did with his timing and the roller section, and how he, find creativity to do different lines, and then literally, like Geyser will copy and Hunter will come and copy as well. But that guy is so creative, it's just unbelievable to watch. And that carried on in, the MX2 class as well. It was such a difficult track, even if it's a lot drier. It was just a lot difficult to actually time it, because when you land after a jump and you want to set a pass up to the left or to the right before after the jump, you had to plan that like way ahead. So you would be landing after one jump thinking, okay, so my chance is to get him in 3 or 4 corners, and I'm going to jump to that side to get to this place, because you could not just land and then just switch line, And this is for me like where it becomes interesting and watching the race, not only for the interest of seeing the good riders battling, but actually all the technical details behind it. Because if I see someone going for a pass, I can see with my eyes, being a rider myself, like I said before, all the effort that goes into that. So he will be jumping to the outside. That means the next jump, he will be jumping on the inside. And that means on that left-hand corner, he can carry inside. And then in the third corner, he will get the benefit of the work that he did 3 or 4 corners ago. So it's just fascinating. For me, I watch, of course, the race with different eyes. A little bit, some of my eyes is a little bit of a coaching eye, and thinking, what does Prado actually do different than most of the other people, or why is Jet Lawrence so much better than everyone else, not only on a lap, but like in a moto. And to be honest with you, you quickly figure it out, because first of all, I think the biggest thing that I can say about those two guys, that really are separate from the rest, is 2 words: patient. And I call the concept called less is more. And when I talk about less is more, because I mention that a lot to my riders, and they're like, what do you mean less is more? It means that sometimes you are chasing the speed, sometimes you are chasing the result, but actually if you just stay loose in the body and you are better at climbing, at timing and planning, and the result will kind of come to you instead of always just chasing it. And that's exactly when you especially on Saturday, when you see Prado, the way that he used his feet position, he do like small bumps to, pick the front up and go down in the whoops. It's just so amazing. He was going into, there was a long, deep inside rut, which was like a little bit of a stop jump. And he came in there with his left foot off the pegs, just standing on one leg, because he knew that if he went into that deep rut and he wanted to jump to the outside, his leg will get caught, and then it's just small things like that. You just watch and you think, yeah, that is why Prado is Prado, because he just do things a little bit different. So he would be coming into this rut, lifting his leg completely off the pegs, maybe half up the frame, and then he would be basically jumping and balance on one leg, will be the right leg on the foot pegs, and then he will put his foot back when he's finished, and then he will sit, stand, and then he would just lift the front, and he just used like 2 bumps, and he went into the first hole and he doubled out, and you think, that's fantastic, how can it look so easy? And then you see immediately like 5 or 10 or 20 riders after that just ding ding, going from side to side, and you think it was just so simple, if you know how to do it. So it was fascinating, it was really good. And like I said, racing on Saturday was always nice to see the individual MX2 riders against MX2, MXGP open class against each other, and then the best man win, But that quickly changed for Sunday. It was a different terrain that have made the track incredible in the morning. I really think that one thing that I really paid a lot of attention to was actually the safety around the track. And to be honest with you, first of all, the track people have done incredible job fixing the ramps, making sure that the ramps and the downslope was always like in the best condition as possible. A huge, how can you say, like a huge regard to them that there was not more accident. Second thing, I think the flag masters was unbelievable. As soon as there was a crash, there was 3 or 4 people there, flagging it and making sure that, everyone was safe. And that was really something that I took in my learning book and thinking, wow, if the flag masters could just be that active and really, instead of just standing with the flag and, you have a guy that crashed in the middle of the jump, which is very dangerous, they were just on it straight away. The little what you call the first aid people that if there was something wrong, they were straight there with a little truck, with everything what they needed. It was just incredible. I was really, really impressed by this. And then obviously, coming to the racing on Sunday and with the track changing every lap, I mean, wow, those riders, like I said, if you have never been a rider before, you will still think that it's very impressive. But when you have been riding a few laps on a motocross track before, and you know what kind of pace they're going in, and then the condition change from every lap, every jump, every bump, every little clay that becomes not really grippy clay, but becomes muddy clay. And, you're riding on your limits. You're using every millimeter of every tire. You're using every little horsepower there is in that bike to go as fast as possible. It's just amazing. I was blown away. I think it was such a great event overall, and to see the best riders in the world fighting to become, world champion for their country, even if some maybe didn't have that privilege of actually fighting for a world championship on their country. They did amazing. Like we saw, like with Geiser. I mean, he rode there with pure heart. The only attention that he could focus about was himself and wanted to be the best in the world. And he certainly saw a level this weekend, which I think we haven't seen a lot of this year with Tim Geiser. We saw it a little bit in the past, but maybe for obvious reason, we have seen it maybe 3 or 4 times this year. We saw it in Switzerland when he was on a different level, and we definitely also saw it in the weekend. But overall, mate, it was just impressive. And of course, seeing the Australian riders getting their first Motocross of Nation. I mean, I don't care who they are, what they are. It's just, I think, it's just amazing when you can do that. And I'm so happy on their behalf, because I can imagine what kind of a feeling that will give, fighting and the Australian team come over every year. I have probably raced 6 or 7 or 8 Motocross of Nation, and our Team Australia has been there every year. So to finally to see them win, it was just a refreshing, nice thing to see, because either it's been Belgium, France, America, US, and now you see those people with, it's not an outsider, because with Jet and Hunter and the MX2 rider, for sure they could be up there. But if you ask anyone, I think you will think top 3 will be difficult. That was my opinion anyway. If anyone asked me, I would probably think France will be one. US was also a good team. And third, I will think of Holland. It will be one of my favorites. And Team Belgium kind of also had a chance for at least podium. But then Team Australia just surprised everyone.
Yeah, mate, it was so good. That's really cool insight about the track and obviously the calculations. And you heard a lot of riders afterwards speaking about how they were quite scared just to, do some of those sections and the big jumps and the ruts. And it was basically sort of a battle for survival by the end of it on the race day, really, wasn't it, mate? And these are the best guys in the world. And I guess they saved the hardest track to last for them before they earn a nice deserved break, mate. But yeah, it was like a really cool contrast between, Koonin just absolutely pushing the limit all in. He was riding so well, just passing 450 riders, heavy hitters like Roxon and co. And, and then you see see like Prado on Saturday and Lawrence on the Sunday, how they just manage things so nicely, like the less is more and the patient approach. Because that track, if you push that a little bit too hard, you'd certainly got punished. And with the Prado thing, just the balance, coordination makes it look so easy, but it really isn't. It's that body of work built up over the years, just day in, day out, continually working on things. Just so when you come to a race situation, it's just, you're just so instinctive and you know how to do it and you have the imagination to do it. And it was probably that section, it's probably just looking like one piece of, it's just like all in one. It's not like separate sort of movements. He just pieces it together. So it's all a really cool package, mate. So I guess before we speak on Australia a bit more, just give us a few more insights on that, because it's really cool to see the way they go about things. Because with dirt bike riding, you can see Tomac, he's absolutely pinning it. Like the Gypsy Tales guy said, like a single use 450 for Tomac. He's so brutal on the bikes. And then you see the Prado, Lawrence, just a little bit sort of more smooth, I guess. And, just the way they approach things is different, but you can still be fast either way, which is also a really cool thing about racing, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what? I was standing, and obviously, I wanted to see Tomac, and getting a little bit more into how does he actually ride the bike and where does he carry that momentum and speed. But sometimes it gave me the impression that I actually couldn't really figure out he was riding a 250 or 450, because he just screamed that bike like unbelievable. And and then you see like, Prado coming by, and he's always using the torque of the bike and thinking more about shifting gears and, just a lot calmer approach, to the riding and to the choices that he makes with, with the gears, with the power, with the lines, everything what he does, even for braking, And I was watching the second start, and they come around this big sweeping corner, which luckily enough, not, I don't think there was anyone that crashed in any of the starts as I remember. And, you're coming down this next straight next to the pit lane, and then you basically going in before you drop down the hill, there was like two massive bumps, and, coming there with, I don't even know, like, I don't know what to say, like how many kilometers, but let's say like 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour. And when you're on the tail of someone, you just really want to push the envelope to get up close to him so you can duck inside going down that hill, And what really impressed me as well, like I said, I look at the small details when I see the riders, because I was like, I can almost feel things that I maybe was been able to do myself back in the days, and seeing the little bit approach, and being a coach now, I look at the track and the riders a lot different than when I was riding, because I was just thinking about winning and coming fastest to A to B. It didn't matter so much how I got there. I just needed to get there. And what he did when he was coming into this braking bump, so everyone was like accelerating going down the straight, and then they were like braking hard into the braking bumps, and some of it, with factory suspension will not get as much kick as the people that doesn't have full factory suspension. That was obviously, but he actually just come with wide open, and he shot off a little bit, and then he just uses his power, but also his leg to lift the bike over that big braking bump. And here you have, 39 riders just behind you. Just the capacity for me just to do that, just coming down wide open and then just short off a little bit and then just use your legs and your power just to hump over that little bump. I mean, that already says quite a lot, And the way that I really look at the track and the racing as well is that, you can see all the planning, from Tim Geiser, for Jed Lawrence, Hunter, all the best riders in the world that have that capacity to look at the track and planning ahead. And to be honest with you, with those deep ruts, like I mentioned a little bit before, it's just very, very difficult to set up a pass, because you have to look at the track. First of all, you have to race at your highest pace. Your heart rate is on the highest, like really pushing yourself to get that extra, half a second or whatever. You have to plan ahead. You have to defend what's behind you. But in the same time, you need to analyze the track and looking for options. Because if you're just going very tunnel vision on what's just in front of your mudguard, you don't see the options, and then you're not going to be able to set anything up. So you can imagine the feeling it gives from the riders, being able, they are maxed pressured with everything physically, but mentally, and also the capacity for your brain to actually still going fast, planning ahead, and still be defensive, but still have a plan of how you're going to pass that guy. Honestly, it's just, I cannot even sometimes believe that I was able to do it, because it's just when you look at it and look from the outside, you think, wow, was I able to do that, 20 years ago? It's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing to see those riders. And I think being a spectator, you can look at things and you can think it's amazing when they scrub and they do this, but to actually feel and look in behind that and see how difficult it is to be able to, come off like a 35-meter tabletop, and then you basically have to commit yourself to land in, that rut or the next 9 ruts. And the next 9 ruts will set you up for the next one, for the next big double down the hill where you was thinking to make the pass. So sometimes you have to go the long way to think, I'm going to lose a little bit here, but in that next corner, because I choose this line here, I'm going to make the pass, hopefully, And that's for me like such a fascinating thing to look at all this behind the scenes, you can say, how they actually plan this in their head, and it makes it so fascinating. And popping those big quads up the hills when you actually have a guy in front and you're thinking, I know that with Eli and also with Hunter, and when they make that commitment. So on the tabletop before, I could hear that Tomac's bike, when he was in that little tabletop before he landed, I could make a decision and say to my friend, I was standing with Rich Elson, the MX2 factory riders, and I said to him, he's gonna jump in now, because I could hear that when he came around that corner and before he landed, that bike was just completely wide open, and then he would not let off until he hit that ramp, And I thought, that's a quad. But the guy in front, you have to think about, you have to analyze him as you are passing him or going alongside of him. You have to think, I just hope that he's not gonna do the triple and he's gonna lean in towards the corner, because then you're gonna be landing on him. So having even that stress factor and feeling, you have to read the body language. So first of all, you land, you're fully committed, you change the gear, going 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th, I don't know. And you just don't shut off, and you just think, let's just hope that he's not going to go in. Because you have to remember, after the quad or the triple, for most people, there was a right-hand corner. So, if you're in front, there's a good chance that you want to close that door as soon as possible. But there's still one guy, 10 meters up in there. So it's just fascinating. Honestly, I really do enjoy to go to those races and see the best riders in the world. And, like I said, even if I have been on a decent level, I still get really impressed of thinking, wow, they are just unbelievable. It's actually incredible that the body can take all the compression, the sustainery and consistency of every lap, just improving, when I can almost feel in my heart rate, the tension that I have, when I'm standing there, because I know that, in the same time, you try to be calm and you try to be patient, but your heart rate is like 200, So, no, just overall, just amazing. I think, like, to watch those guys, and you could really see a little bit different between some of the bikes, and like the way that they build up the power. I think the Americans' bikes are very responsive, very. I would maybe even call it. I don't know if I call it short powered, but like it looks like there's response, but there's a little bit more mid and top end. Maybe something to do with the tracks, where I see, for example, like Geyser have a lot more, maybe even a lot more power, but a lot more, torquey power. Put a lot more traction to the rear wheel. Maybe that's something to do with the way that the Honda is built. Also with Jet, I think was very similar. He uses also the bike with a lot of torque. He's very good at using the power of the bike in a good way. You have a good throttle control. But then you see Prado as well, riding only in high gears, and you never hear him rev the bike, not even in there. He go like, whoa, and then it's completely quiet. And just before he lands, he gives it, full power. So it's just a different technique. If you watch the American, also here, Hayden Deegan, I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Justin Barsha, when he was on the 250 Geico Honda, where that thing was just completely pinned, and you couldn't hear any different if he was in the air or he was in the ground. It was just wide open. Where I think probably Jet and Hunter, Prado, maybe have a little bit different way of approaching the jumps. I never hear, and you can correct me, but I didn't hear once that Jet was like in the air, like wide open before he lands. He kind of waits, and then before he hits the ground, he's like, he using the torque. And I was the same. I would always land in too high gear, but I would be using the clutch when I land. So I would be up in the air and then the hook up to like fourth, knowing that when I land, it would probably be a little bit too high to get the quick response. But then I would use the clutch to accelerate that, because then I stretch out the gearbox and then I could focus on my feet position, making the bike moving forward and kind of helping the suspension, letting me moving fast from A to B. So that's my technique, And where Tomac, he is like already wringing out the power when he lands. And that means that he also creates, in my world, like a little bit of a short gearbox. So you have to shift a little bit more, But again, I was probably more leaning towards Prado's side, with setting up the bike. I like quite a lot of bottom power. I was not a guy that ringed the RPMs on the bike on a 450. I was trying to keep it, in the low gear, using the torque. The suspension was a lot more usable as well. And I probably learned that a little bit from Stefan, racing him and seeing him, how he actually got away with less is more, and being patient in the corner and keeping the speed and shifting, early, so the bike was actually tracking instead of, moving around.
Yeah, it's really interesting insight, mate. It's fascinating to hear your opinion on it. And like you said, you want the bike, you see those guys we were talking about, the bike's almost an extension of themselves, the way they're connected with their feet, their head's nice and still. It's really cool to see it all coming together in one complete package. And you can have other guys that are just completely ragged, like Barsha, you were saying, that can work just as well. But yeah, that quad you were saying, it's a huge sort of thing. You really have to set it up and, be quite committed to it and brave, because, on that track and in those conditions and racing other people at that elite speed, there's, not that much room for errors. It's pretty fine margins. And the triple to single worked quite well as well, because then you could sort of set yourself up for the next corner as well. But it was almost like a bit of a flex almost doing that quad, wasn't it, mate? Look at me sort of thing, wasn't it? And like you were saying, the way those guys ride the bike, the momentum's so key, isn't it? Especially with the corners, just having that little bit of extra, roll speed and momentum to carry yourself through without sort of giving yourself that hit on the throttle when you don't always need to, or just getting the braking zones correct so you can have enough momentum. There's so many calculations, isn't there, mate? So it's really cool to hear your insights on that.
And the funny thing was actually, gifting the Swedish riders that started jumping that quad. So you have all the best riders in the world. I believe, Jet and getting used to Supercross and everything. Then gifting was actually the first guy to do it on, you can say, like pretty much a stock 450. So that was pretty cool. And then I think the other riders thought, okay, if he can do it, then we can do it as well with the power of our bike, and then a lot of people start jumping it. But when I was walking the track, with all the Blu Cru riders on Saturday, and me and Villepoto was walking the track, and Doc Dubac with the Blu Cru, and I was like, do you think you can quad this? Because the ramp was a lot steeper, and I thought, you gotta call airspace if you're gonna be like jumping here, because that would be so high. But yeah, it's again, I will maybe see the track also with, of course, a lot of things happen over 20 years. I think we could jump pretty good, and big jumps, with the aluminum frame and the new style of the Honda or the Yamaha later on. But I mean, those suspension that I have today and the stability of the bikes, they can pretty much just jump anything. And, also the power that they have available. I will not, if you say peak horsepower, I'm not sure. I haven't actually spoke with an engineer about it, but I'm not sure if they're peaking out a lot more power than our 450. But I think it's a lot more usable. The power is a lot more spread out, because we could either choose, like, either we have a lot of power in the bottom, but then we have nothing in middle to top, or we could choose the other way around, that we didn't have a lot of power, but then middle and top. But I choose always to try to get the power down so I could change the gear quickly, and then the bike was working a lot more calm. And I think, today, the suspension and the setup of the system, of the frame, and the combination with different setting of linkage system and angles, and there's probably a little bit more options, and it's just amazing to see them, especially when you can get trackside and you can see them like, there's a big jump. You don't want to be jumping short here, and the timing had to be so perfect because you have to land, and then in 15 meters, and you pretty much coming on a 450 wide open, going third, fourth, probably let it ring out in fourth, I would assume, and then straight after you land, and then you have ruts going into a right-hander before another triple, where it's like 4 lines coming into 2 lines. So you had to, you could see Geiser, he was jumping all the way to the left of the jump, so he could really sweep in when he was in the lead, and just sweep in and carry all that momentum, so he could quad. I think, no, he tripled, and then he went up, and then he wheel tapped, and then, double, and then double out. It was just, like I said, it's just so fascinating to see them, all that calculation, they land over here, and then they come around the corner, and to do, they had to be so advanced all the time, and planning ahead all the time to be able to go that speed, and to be able to be so consistent, like you said. And on Sunday, especially, the track was not only was rutty, not only was bumpy, but it was also really slippery, and every lap the track changes a little bit. So I was actually a bit worried, because the start, if they didn't quad that big, that big jump, they were like scrubbing into it. And you just think, every lap, mate, it's going to get a little bit more slippery. It's going to get a little bit more slippery. And finally, it's going to end up a little bit like ice, and you're just coming in, and he's just, throwing the bike down, and you think, holy, I don't hope that he's going to do that more. And that was basically, all the riders, if there was a little bit too much traffic, they would just, scrub it like unbelievable. And you just think, don't do too much, And like I said, as the race progressed, you could really see the difficulties of being, at some places on the track, it got more and more slippery, and on the landings on some of the ramps before the big triple up to the finish line, it's a really nice tabletop, because that tabletop had been the same, that part of the track where the Everts and Stewart corner, and that last part of the track has been the same all years, since, like I said, I rode Motocross of Nations 2006, and that tabletop, even looking at it just from it looks so simple, but from the landing to actually want to hook that inside corner, you have to be so precise, and that tabletop is not small, I can tell you. You have to go quite committed from the corner after the step down to actually going into that jump, but you have to land in for like 30 centimeters, 20 centimeters. If you land too long, you have too much speed to carry into those ruts, and you will fall over. But there's no climbing up of those ruts. You have to start landing and leaning and be committed. And if you land a little bit, too short, you will bounce off, and then the next thing you hit is like first, second, third rut, and then you will go over the bars as well. So I cannot even describe how difficult it looks so easy when you stand as a spectator, and also even when I stand and watch, but I can feel the difficulties, because I've been around that track and know the intensity that you're riding with, the heart rate that you're riding with, and then being able to focus for 30 minutes at the highest pace, chasing down or being chased the best riders in the world it's just not easy.
Yeah, a lot of those turns are obviously off camber as well, aren't they, mate? Like we were saying, the angle's quite vicious in a lot of them, and just the balance, the core strength, the legs, the arms, it's all working, isn't it, mate? It's demanding. It's, 30+2 against the best in the world. That's another thing you got to throw in, because, TV doesn't really do it justice, because they're pretty steep and they look pretty brutal, and that alone is just a massive test off camber rutted sections, and trying to go fast, and you just want to get through them so you can get on that throttle too. So the patience is key in those ones too.
Yeah, I mean, when you see that off camber, which is called, famously the Everts corner, and why it's called that for people that doesn't know this is of course because Everts passed, James Stewart standing up on the outside, and not even that it's really deep ruts. And of course, James was protecting the inside because he thought that's where the pass is going to be. The switch line on that, there was a double jump before, now it's just a ski jump. And when Stewart came from the outside and he went to the right, and Evers was actually on the left, and they kind of like cross-rutted each other, and then natural instinct will, of course, I'm just going to go inside because then nobody's going to pass me. But then Evers just probably didn't shut off, and he just came dancing through those massive big ruts and bumps on the top, and he was just standing. But what people don't understand is like not even is called it's Everts corner because it's like going downhill, but it's, you know, when you exit the corner, there was no ruts anymore, and then it was basically just like a base with like really slippery hard dirt. So you're coming around off camber, you know, using, of course, when you have ruts, you come from like you brake and you start leaning the bike, and when you have ruts, you basically have 100% tire again against the berm, you know. But then you come with all that speed around, having 100% tire lean against the rut. But when he actually passed James on the outside standing up, there was no rut left. There was only a very, very fine, you know, with rocks and slippery stuff. And he then had to push the tires and use the last 2 or 5% of the tire. How he did that was still for me like a miracle. Because when you watch that race when you slow it down in slow motion and you watch it over again, which I did, I was also assisting at the race because we, as Denmark, we didn't qualify for the A final. I think we finished. Yeah, I remember I either won the race or finished second in the B final, but that was probably one of the only and few races in my time as a racer that I actually thought, you know what, I'm actually really interested to see this last race of Stefan Everts and James Stewart, you know. I would still love to be out there, but when it was what it was, then I was quite happy to watch that race and to see, you know, coming around that speed, that committed, that confidence, and pushing the tires to absolutely maximum, and your feet position, elbow position, everything played a part. How that pass became so famous, that is amazing. Because, like I said, not only you have the bumps, you have to go longer meters. That means that you probably have to increase the speed by double. But to do that, you are knowing that you're coming out to a slippery surface where there's no rut with higher speed than anyone else, and then you really comes down to confidence and technique. And that's basically, you know, the things that you also see with, you know, especially Prado, Geiser is incredible as well. Hunter and Jet, incredible of how they can make that speed with actually looking that slow. But that's again, you know, like I said to all my riders, I said, if you go out and you see a rider that goes really slow, but then you clock him and he goes really fast, then you know that he's really, really good. You know, because it's not all that is defined by sound, that just eyes with speed. Is the way that you approach. And I think that's one of the things that is a bit magical when you see, you know, especially Prado and the Hunter brothers, you know, that they're able to go fast, and you're thinking, where do they make the difference? Why are they going half a second faster than the fastest in the world consistently? You know, and when you cannot see that, and you really look further into that, and then you see the small details he's just pre-jumping that little thing, he's using that little berm, he's making sure he's hooking the gear, he's letting go of the rear brake, so he's keeping that rolling speed, he's just lifting the bike up over those 2 bumps so he can get down in the first roller and then double out, so he miss all the ruts that everyone else is taking. That's where they make the little difference. But that little difference make 100 of a second here, 200 of a second here. And when you count the whole track on that level, you think half a second is maybe not a lot. But when you count that over like 40 minutes or 30 minutes, then it's a lot, you know. And when you can do that consistent every single lap, it's half a second is nothing, but it's so unbelievable difficult to do that it's we are looking normally in the people that I train, we're looking for seconds, and but when you work with the best riders in the world, you're not looking for seconds, you're looking for hundreds of a second, you're looking for 200 of a second. And when you can focus this down, and like I said to my riders, I said you have to put the track in small segments, because if you, of course, you need to have a track map in your head, thinking, I have a plan, I know where I'm going to go, I'm going to land here so I can get over here so I can do this. Of course you need to have that, but also what is important is to find out a segment and split the track up in small segments, so you're knowing that from here to here I just want perfection, from here to here I need perfection. And when you can narrow those down to the small perfection of the track, you don't think about spectators, you don't think about competitors, you don't even think about results. You're just thinking about moving forward with you, the bike, and the track as convenience as possible, as fast as possible, and safe as possible. And that's where the narrative of racing really becomes very intense, where you're just thinking about your breathing, your line choice, everything have to be coming into like a rhythm. And I had the privilege of having a couple of times in my career, I will not say a lot because obviously I have never been a world champion, but I had a couple of races, or maybe 5 races or 6 races in my career, where I had that, that focus and that feeling of the track, and you just it's easy, but it's not easy, if you know what I mean. It's just everything just flows into a thing, and your body is just loose, you have no pressure, and you're just moving forward. And that's such a nice feeling. And of course the best riders in the world have more of that feeling, because that's what it takes. When you see Ricky Carmichael in the past, winning 24 motos, I mean, he must have had quite a good feeling in most of them, but it's so amazing to be able to dive into that and to be so focused that you can actually be capable of doing this.
Yeah, it's so cool to hear your thoughts on it, mate, getting in that sort of flow state like you hear mentioned. And I guess it's got to be a complete package when you're racing this event, and just all the races really, and just, making sure you're not burying the bike, carrying the momentum, like you said, not smashing berms unnecessarily. And then it's like the fitness, the consistency, the ability to repeat it lap after lap. And I guess that stems from confidence and, like you said, decision making and judgment as well. It all comes into it. They make it look easy, but it really isn't, mate. And I guess the Aussies sort of sum that up really well. 3 pretty precise riders with the Lawrence brothers and Webster, and, their 11th team to ever win the nation. So really cool. And obviously the team manager, Burner, he's raced 7 motocross of nations, and he's had so much history with the event. And it was so cool for him to get the win as the boss as well. And, Webster, he did what he had to do in that first moto. I believe he was the second 250 rider behind only Kai de Wolf. So that was a perfect sort of start for him. And the pressure must have just been so immense on him as that extra guy with the Lawrence brothers. He won the 450 title in Australia in the Pro MX against Jed Beaton, who's an awesome rider too. So all that preparation, I guess, paid off. He was there with the Lawrence brothers in Florida for a month on the HRC bike. It was really cool. They had that collective sort of spirit, the collective team, and they all, pulling in the same direction. And it has a big difference, doesn't it, mate? And all that sort of effort that's gone in to make the nations possible to get the win. I always think of all the riders that have raced for Australia and haven't won. It's just so cool, mate. So yeah, I guess there were so many keys to success for Australia, but obviously Jet moving to the open class, and that gave Hunter a little bit more gap, a little bit more of a breather, because in some of the American races, he'd do really well in the first moto, win that, and then he'd struggle a little bit more in the second moto. So it gave him that little bit more recovery time. They had the confidence that Jet, even though he's not that far off an injury, could get the job done both times like he did. So a lot of sort of strategy and tactics, but just such a great day for the Aussies, and, all that hard work finally paid off.
Yeah, I mean, to like exactly bringing a team together, training on the same compound as the Lawrence brothers, getting the bike proper set up. I guess he kind of used the same spec from Yusamoto. I would have thought without knowing it, but it definitely sounded like that bike was ripping. It was not a stock 250. I can tell you that. But it must be so cool to actually having that opportunity, both from him coming from Australia, coming over training with the Lawrence brothers, really create that kind of because it is a team event, I was unfortunately never privileged to have a team that you really could work a lot with, because if we could qualify for the Motocross of Nation, going to the A final, we were already quite lucky, depending, probably mostly on me and just hoping the best for the rest of the riders. Not to say anything bad about the Danish riders at that time, but there was not so many that had that experience like I had, racing in the World Championship. But I would always wish that, I had a team where that you're competitive and you go out there as a team and just want the best results for not only for you, but also for the team. It must be such a great feeling. And, that's what a little bit when I watch, I don't watch a lot of football, but that's what you see when you're seeing the World Cup or the European Cup or whatever it is, and you have the Spanish team, Real Madrid, and you can see those players are always playing together, because, if you take the Danish team in football, then Eriksson, he's playing for Manchester United, and this guy playing, another player or whatever it could be, and they don't have that team spirit. So they're always looking for each other on the pitch, and when you see really good teams, even if my interest is not in football, but I kind of admire that, when you see the Spanish player, they play together every day pretty much. They know exactly when they deliver the ball, when they're going to deliver it, how precise they will deliver that ball. And the other guy that receive it already know this. And that's a little bit the team spirit I believe that the Australian have probably capitalized on, and thinking we have this great opportunity. So even if I think that it was probably not one of my favorite team to win the Motocross of Nation, maybe Jet and Honda and, the MX2 guys, they already knew that they're going to be, they're going to be there and smashing it, because they're trained together. They know what they're doing. We can sustain 30 minutes plus 2 laps wide open. Let's go there and let's rip it, and that was probably the confidence that it came with, and it must have given the MX2 guy Webster. So he probably got a lot of confidence training with the Lawrence brother, get up to that speed, get familiar with racing that speed, even if he had a good level before. So yeah, fair play to the Australian actually being able to put this together and come over and said, you know what, now we have proved that we can win a Motocross of Nation. Let's go to Ironman next year and let's just rip it, So and the Americans gonna be quite, eager to actually win another Motocross of Nation, and I'm sure the rest of the team, like Team France, was probably very disappointed of they came with a world champion in each class and whatever else they have achieved, and they just didn't do it, But isn't that the great with motocross as well? Because it's so unpredictable. You can think that on paper, of course, the French team looked the best. Last year, they looked the best on paper. They showed it was the best on paper. They got the trophy. Everything was perfect. But this year, small details, like Vial came in for goggles. Maxime I cannot remember if he went in for goggles. I don't think he went in for goggles, but something else happened and he had to ride. And I saw Febra in the first moto riding without goggles and getting all the roost for the guy in front. I cannot remember who it was, but that must be horrendous. When they go out on the start, you had really to put yourself on the good side with not getting shot out your eyes, because when you look at the dirt there was small rocks, and especially going out to the start, it was small rocks. So it's so dangerous. So, but you can see that these guys they're just so determined. It's almost like they don't think about if they can watch anything anymore. They're just, they're just thinking of that moment where it's so intense and just hoping for the best. And no, it was amazing.
Yeah, mate, it was such a good day. And obviously Geyser as well, talk about an individual effort. Obviously Slovenia's got a pretty good team. Jan Pantar's got top 5 in China, MXGP, really good rider. If they, get that really quality sort of third rider, they'll be a contender one day if you ever keep those guys going for many more years. But yeah, he was sort of wanting to do it for himself in a lot of ways. Just finished, obviously, you're in Spain as well at the championship finale where it didn't go his way. And, he wanted to sort of show he's the man, didn't he, mate? That's a big boost ahead of next year. No Prado will be there. It'll be him and Hurlings. Fevre, Renault going at it. It'll be so good. And yeah, he loves that track medley basin, doesn't he, Geyser? And yeah, he clicked well. He got the good starts, great bike underneath him, and he's pretty creative with the lines too. He probably doesn't get as much credit with that, but he's really a good rider. He's technically proficient, doesn't mind hanging it out. But not many guys can go out there and say they beat Jet Lawrence straight up, can they, mate?
No, I mean, like you said, he probably had a point to prove to himself, and to the world as well. Like, I talked about it, and I also spoke. I'm a really good friends of the guy that runs the gas team with Prado, and I spoke with him, and he said, yeah, we also had a little bit backlog, and you know what, it's kind of 50-50 what happened with Prado in Portugal when it was so muddy. I mean, we know when it's riding in that tough condition, it can go either way. But I kind of also I feel still, in my own opinion, that Prado is a little bit better rider. He's just a little bit more technical. But then you can say, on the other hand, guys have a lot of heart. He have a lot of heart. He rides with a lot of determination. So I think also he deserved to win a world championship again. And when you lose a both in the foot pegs, and you basically have to, it's something you can land on a rock a million times in practice, and it would never happen. It never happened. I spoke with team. Marcos is quite a responsible and hates RC, and he was my old mechanic, the Brazilian guy, and he said, you know what, Brian, it never happened. We never seen this in a million years. And it just tells you a little bit about how difficult it is to become a world champion, to running, 50 or 60 heats, 24 rounds of the world championship, and it stands down to the last 9 points because of you lost 25. And you saw that with Caroli back in his days in Uddevalla. He came with 50-point lead. He went off the track, went in the mud, couldn't get the bike out, 25 points gone. Went out in the second motor, did exactly the same thing on the other part of a track, and he tried to get the bike out, and the chain come off. Something incredible. And you think, lost 50 points, so now he was equal on points, 7 rounds to go, and he went out and he won every single race from then on, And it just tells you a little bit how intense the sport is, and that's why I admire, like I said, I finished 4th in the world. I had many good results, individual results. I never became a world champion, and it's just so difficult. And to become 9 times world champion, or 10 times world champion, or even 1 time world champion is just unbelievable. But a little bit back to guys and his technique, and I think he is maybe a little bit less technical in some ways, but then he have a lot of heart in other ways. He definitely give it 100%, and you can see he's a little bit, he can get into that kind of riding fast, but then a beast mode, a little bit the same what we see with Eli. He's fast and incredible fast, but then he can just step it up. And to be honest with you, I saw that and that's what I admired from Ricky as well, because he had that moment. Even in Supercross, I remember watching him. We went to the MGM stadium in Las Vegas when they did this. It was only like a small stadium, and it was like a $1 million race or whatever they called it. I cannot actually remember. It was many years ago. And he was behind, I think it was Berner or someone. I think Berner was on a Kawasaki, and he was in the lead, and you could just see Carmichael. He just, when he started going through the whoops, wide open and have no feet on the foot pegs, then you know that he's on the limit, And I think actually I remember it was probably in 2006 or 7, and I think he passed Berner in that left-hand corner after the whoops. You basically heard him coming in, through the outside and then coming into the stadium, and he was just 1 gear higher, Ricky, when he came, because he carried so much speed. And he was not this, he's not the biggest guy. So when that thing kicked in the end, he was basically going in the front wheel into the berm, and just, how he saved that, I don't even know. But then he could go back to completely normal. So when he went left there and he passed Berner, he jumped over the next finish line, and then he will go back to being really smooth. So he had that beast mode as well, where they can go, just let me just hang it out for 4 laps and hope that I will still survive. But like Ricky said, I actually never thought or felt that I'm sketchy on the track, because this is how I train. And this is how I do day in and day out, riding the bike on the limit. And then it becomes a normality. When the bike steps like this, I know that how to get that bike in position. And that was actually quite a nice comment as well. Like I think a lot of people, when they train today, they train in their comfort zone, because they are like, oh, we got to get to the next race. To become a world champion or contender, we need to be there. Where I think, with Ricky, he just, because his technical capabilities compared to what we see today was maybe not as completed. He just let it hang out. He was just, I need to train like this to be able to win races. And obviously, like today with Jet and Prado, and being able to actually hang it out, but without, you can really see that they let it hang out, but they're just going fast. That tells maybe something about a better suspension, a better frame, but also a better, how can I say, technical skilled, how they should be on the bike positioning, making that bike allowing to go in that position on a jump, on whoops and stuff like that. And also, I think Ricky was the first guy that really showed the training ethic that it needs to be for motocross on that level. And that was probably his starting point of view, that he was just in better shape. So he was not thinking about, how can I manage this race? He was just thinking going fast from A to B for 30 minutes. And he knew that he had the physical condition. And that's what I a little bit see with Prado as well. He's also having that physical condition where I think, where I think Prado is probably, maybe he could be in good shape as anyone else. I'm not the judge of that, but I definitely see him with his riding style. He's maybe not on the limit physically. He's just, and that's the same with Jet. I will not think, without knowing it, he's as fit as Jeffrey Hurdings maybe. But do you need to? Do you need to be as fit if you're consuming 30% or 20% less energy riding the bike, going as fast? Stefan Evers was the proof of that. The way that he moved on the bike, the way that he approached the corners, that he's well calculated of the entry and the exit of the corner. He's missing a lot of bumps that we other normal riders like myself, we were just hitting every lap. So it's always about, do you really need to be in that incredible shape? I mean, Tomac is in incredible shape, but he also rides in that way where you need that incredible shape because he doesn't think about consuming energy. He just goes, and he goes wide open. It doesn't matter what gear he's in. He's just, but is it true or not? It's just that's the way, I see like Tomac and Hurdings is probably a little bit similar when it comes to physical demand, and where the next generation like Prado and Jet Lawrence and Hunter is just, they're just a different kettle of fish of how they ride the bike, and maybe are not depending so much on a physical demand. This is the way I see it. This is my my personal view on it. I think both Calgarys are amazing, and I think all riders like Hurlings, Eli is incredible riders. But I also think it's fascinating when you see someone that can go as faster or faster and just look like they're on a siding lap. And, they're just dancing with the bike. I think that's fascinating as well.
Yeah, it's super cool. I see those guys flick the switch, mate, and it's just hammer down. And I guess it's a pretty frightening thing, of Lawrence Prado when they do need to really get it going. They've got that strong base framework as well to get it going. So it's a really good sort of combination for them in the future, which I'm sure there's many tests ahead. But yeah, there was a few more really excellent rides from that Motocross of Nations. You look at De Wolf in the 250s, Lucas Kuhn in that first moto was just passing guys like Roxon and Jeremy Seawer, and just so calm, confident, sure of himself. But obviously he's had that crash and looks like he's got the collarbone injury. But Langenfelder in that second moto got third, just crazy, like so many impressive performances that sometimes go under the radar if the whole team doesn't necessarily do so well. Even Harrop, what a brilliant ride to cap off a really
Yeah.
strong season. That triumph, got fifth overall in the 250 MX2 championship. So cool, mate. So you want to give us a couple of thoughts on those guys, and then obviously mention the Blu Cru, stuff you were doing, must have been amazing. You and Villapoto were helping the youngsters a lot there. It was an exciting weekend. I'm sure you're absolutely flat out helping out all the youngsters, and I guess Jamie Keith and Townley's young son Levi was so impressive, probably the stars of the weekend on that one. So tell us a bit about some of those MX2 250 riders plus the Blu Cru stuff you were working on.
Yeah, like obviously, like Katie Wolf's, is one of the riders that I look a lot to. And I would consider myself as a bit of a friend of him, or whatever you can say. He's just a normal kid. When we are down at Red Sand, where I do my schools in the winter, he played PlayStation with my son, and just a normal kid that very good at riding a motorcycle, but just want to have fun as well and want to play PlayStation. And he told my son that he had like 4 or 5 PlayStation in his house. So when he goes on the toilet, he have a PlayStation he can play, and it's just, and my son was like, "Oh, Dad, have you heard this? He have PlayStation everywhere." And he goes, he said, yeah, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have one on each station on the house, So he's just a really likable guy. And, I think, I just really wish him the best, and he can ride a motorcycle like, yeah, not many people. He's also very creative with the track and the way he used the suspension. Just overall, a really nice guy. And I always hope for those people. When you see them grow up, and been coming to Red Sand for the last 2 or 3 years, and working with my good friend Rasmus Jorgensen, which is the team manager for the Nested Husqvarna factory team. I just always just hope that. I hope that you're just gonna stay your feet on the ground, and just be as fun and giggly like you are now, and come over and give you a high five, and it doesn't matter how good you are. The most important thing is that you're being humble, and you stay the same personality. Even sometimes it can be difficult, and there's probably people saying to me as well, yeah, but you were also a little bit like this or that. But you know what? It's difficult to navigate in, because you want to go down to the start. People want to have an autograph. They want this, and they only maybe see you in that moment. They want to get the best out of their experience. And I'm walking down there with a different mindset. I want to get the best out of my situation, because it's me that trains 6 hours a day, risk my life to race a motorcycle, and I actually want to do it as good as I can. And it's always a difficult combination, but that's what I always wish for the riders, and something I can maybe teach the young riders a little bit as well, trying to, influence to just be humble, just stay with your feet on the ground. You're all this up here, but just remember, when it's all finished one day, which it will be, people will definitely remember for, how many championships you didn't win, but the most remember you from being a nice guy. The title will go away, that will kind of disappear in people's memory, but the personality on a person will never fade, and that's some of the things that I'm proud of in my career. I've never been a world champion. I was a pretty good rider, but I was never Katie Wolf, never Jorge Pardo, but I really tried to stay with my feet on the ground, always had time to my fans. And that's something that I feel today when I walk through the paddock, speaking with teams and they welcome me like I was 10 times world champion, but I was not. I was just me. And that's finally, when you get a little bit older, I'm just a normal person. I was really good at what I did because I sacrificed, or I did a lot of things different than other people was willing to sacrifice. But for me, it was, of course, not a sacrifice, because this is what I wanted to do. And, and seeing, like Conan with the way that he was riding in the weekend, and it was just amazing to see, like you said, how much he was on the limit, and you kind of felt for him as well. You're thinking that can go really, really amazing, or that could go really wrong. There was those two options, because he was not on the limit, he was over the limit. And it was amazing to watch, to see the way that he moves around in that 250, outpowering almost Ken Roxon, and setting that pass up the way that he did. and the commitment that you need to do on an MX2 bike, I would be very difficult to say that those bikes have the same power. That would be unfair. But to see he's moving forward and passing so many good, world-class riders on a 250. I mean, it was spectacular to watch. I gotta be honest, but unfortunately, it went wrong, and that is the difference. Sometimes when you're moving so much on the limit, it is not long from succeeding to failure. It's a very short line where you're like clapping and thinking that's amazing, and then next minute you're lying on the floor and then you broke something. So overall, like, amazing to watch those 250, and like you said, we speak about the best in the world. We speak about a lot about the Pardo and those people, but there's also so many other good riders that are in there that did amazing job. But obviously you cannot watch it all because you focused always a little bit on the most incredible riders and most amazing riders in the world. And when you have a fight between Jet Lawrence and Tim Geiser, which is best of both worlds, you eyes are going to be there, and you kind of forget there was 38 or 28 riders in the race. So yeah, that was amazing. Just to sum that up, and obviously being part of the Blu Cru and been there for like 4 or 5 years now, it's also take my breath away, because you have all those young kids that never raced in front of 50,000 100,000 people, and you have myself, you have Villapoto, you had Doug Duback, you had a lot of people, you had Rick Elsener. I'm not sure if I actually pronounce his surname good enough, but factory MX2 rider, number 44. So and he was with me as well on the track, trying to to pay a little bit of attention, because the Blu Cru concept is, of course, trying to pick out 1, 2, and 3 from each class, but we also have 2 wild card that goes to the master class with myself, Nancy Van de Ven, and then Pauline Gauthier. So then they will come to a place in France. We will spend 2 days with the riders and pick out for each class 1 rider that we think deserved to have an extra support for Yamaha Europe. So overall, it was just amazing, and to have a little bit of chance to meet Villapoto on a different kind of perspective, not talking about their careers, but just talking about sharing the ideas and what we have been doing here in Europe and what they're doing in the US, and actually having some of the American riders over. One of the riders that won the 85, I cannot remember his name, but he was training with the Lawrence brothers on the same compound, and he was Hunter was out there clapping and wishing for him. So it was really nice, and there were some good riders from Australia as well, and the 65, as I remember. And just amazing to spend a couple of days with those young riders, which could be the future of our next generation. So you gotta respect them, and you're gonna try to give them as many pointers as possible without making it too confusing, and be able to, for those kids to walk with Villapoto, with Doug Duback, maybe even myself, if some people remember that. And giving them small ideas and pointers of where they can improve a little bit. Hopefully give them a little bit of a more of a comfort zone, to go into this massive event. For them, it must be huge, seeing all their favorite riders they have only seen, most of them maybe on TV, and then finally racing in front of them and getting, maybe a high five from Hunter Lawrence or Ken Roczen or whatever. I mean, what more is there to say about it? Is just amazing, I think, and to be part of that, it's something that makes me really happy, and something that really makes meaning for me to be able to help and see the young riders grow up. And some of them have come the last 2 or 3 years, and you can see the small progression, from them from 65 to 85, and now they maybe be in 125, and and seeing, Ben and his son, Levi Townley, succeeding the way that he did also makes me really happy, because I know Ben and raced against Ben and saw him coming over to Europe, and how difficult it is to move away from your own country, being that far away. Like also the commitment that I have to do to the sport. Not many people understand how difficult it is to be successful, but to move away from your family, maybe only travel away with your girlfriend, thinking that you're gonna be, world motocross world champion, which only one guy can make every year. It takes some balls to do this and to do that commitment. So it was nice to speak with him, and also Joshua Coppins was there with his son, which is Nixon Coppins, that did fairly well as well. And also to see him, he lives in the UK, and Nixon Coppins and Joshua live, of course, in New Zealand, and his ex-girlfriend or wife or whatever lives in the UK. So I see Nixon a little bit more over the last couple of years, because he's been to the masterclass. He works with, he rides for Yamaha UK. So I do training school for Yamaha UK, so I meet him there. So it's really nice to see him as well, because you see those small changes from 65 to 85, and now he's able to train with Joshua and Levi in New Zealand during the winter, where it's their summertime, where it's our winter time. So, see him next time when he come back from New Zealand, I would probably see another progression, and even if it's not my son, it's nice to be a little bit a part of that and see the progression of those young riders. And then, for me being an ambassador for Yamaha, it's nice when I can see, Levi Townley going in and win a world championship on the 85 class on a Yamaha. Of course it makes you thinking, oh, this is actually really nice, because if people do doubt if you can win on a Yamaha, then we don't have to doubt anymore, because it's unfortunately not only about the bike, it's also about who rides it, and I've been myself on really, really good bikes, and I've been on maybe non so suitable bike for me, but you still kind of make it, you have to make it happen. And it was so nice to see that him winning the world championship. So now we actually have proven that we can win a world championship in 125. We have proven we can win 85. Now we just need to prove on the 65 we can win a world championship. So that's what we're working on. But it's overall it was just an awesome weekend for so many perspectives. Watching the best riders in the world, being a part of Blu Cru. I met my old friend Ricky Carmichael, which I haven't seen for a couple of years, and his manager there. He was like, "Come over here, give me a hug." It's just, even if I don't see Ricky a lot, and I've done some training school with him in the past, and we race together. But it's just a family that you don't need to speak a lot, but you just, like, when you see each other, it's just really nice, because you share the same passion. And whatever, if Ricky Carmichael, for me, of course he's the GOAT, he's the greatest of all time, but most what I do see is that his personality. He's a good example of a person that is so good, but just a normal guy in shorts. He's nobody different than me or you or anyone else, and he doesn't try to be different. We just know that he's the GOAT, he's the greatest of all time, and that's the only thing that we know. But he's just a normal person, and I really appreciate that with him. And I always use him as an example in my training school when I talk about personalities. I said, Ricky Carmichael, when I met him the first time, he knew me a little bit, because, like I said, we raced together, and I was fortunately to beat him one time in the qualifying race in Fox Hill on 125. But other than that, we have just met on training school. I've watched his career and see how great he is, and then actually meeting him as a person and just feeling that he's just a normal guy. He doesn't try to be a superstar or anything else. He's just a normal person that would rather speak about other people than himself, and I really think that's a solid base there with a person that feel completely just relaxed. Yeah, I was good at what I did, but I did what I did because I wanted to be the best. But other than that, I'm just a normal person, and I think that's something to be admired. Like a lot of people that think like, oh, when you're really good, you're like we see all this superstar in films, and we put them up, over ourselves and over anything else. But you know what? It's just normal. We breathe and the heart will beat in the same way, and we're just normal people. And I think that's something that you have to remember, and also I have worked on when I was a rider, because sometimes you want to fly off a little bit the ground. Now I won a Grand Prix, fuck, but then someone will just, either it's your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, will just bring you down to earth. And for me, you're just crying, nothing else. And for my mom, I remember my mom, when I called home for my first Grand Prix as a professional, and I was lying third in the world, and the year before I was 40th in the world. And I said, Mom, and she said, how did it go? And it was like, yeah, I'm flying third in the world. I said, I'm so glad that you didn't crash and hurt yourself. That was the only thing she was focused about. She didn't even hear. I said, Mom, didn't you hear? I was saying that I'm third in the world. Yeah, I'm so glad you didn't crash or hurt yourself. So that's good. And next weekend I would come home and I would be like, I will call home and say, yeah, it was a shit weekend. I finished 10th or whatever, And she would say exactly the same thing. I'm just glad that you didn't hurt yourself. She didn't care about the results. Of course, she was proud when I make a good result. But the meaning for a mom is just that you stay safe and being humble and just being yourself. And that's what we have to remind ourselves of sometimes, when we are racers, we are just normal people. We're just good at what we do because we want to do it.
Yeah, well said, mate. It's really awesome perspective and really cool stories there. It really sounds like you had an awesome weekend on so many levels, mate. Absolutely epic. So great sort of time to, I guess, wrap this one up, mate. We've gone over the time schedule as we always do, mate. We can just chat for hours. It's so good hearing your insights, mate. But I guess any final thoughts? What are the weeks ahead in the off season looking like for you, mate? I'm sure we'll get you back on to chat some of these pre-season races, maybe some World Supercross, whatever, mate. Just old time stories from the Everts and Smets days are always pretty fascinating to me, aren't they, mate? So any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I mean, for me, I just, I'm constantly, doing something now. After this, we had just done the selection for the masterclass for Yamaha today, so I had to work this since 6 o'clock this morning, getting that out of the way, and then I have an Indian rider over, and go training with him. That's then come home 7 o'clock in the evening, and tomorrow I'm gonna be up early doing some good cycling before I train with the Indian rider. And then I go to the masterclass together with Pauline Gauthier and Nancy and the rest of the Yamaha crew and pick out that rider. And then, basically we're in November, and then all my cycling camps and fitness camps are starting. So if anyone wants to be in good shape and thinking already for the next season, then they can go in on my website, mx8.dk, and see what there is available in there. And that gives me a great opportunity to really focus down on some cycling. I'm gonna hopefully go up to Girona and see the trainer for Calvin Ferlanders and have a little bit of word with him. Maybe even pick up a new bicycle and get a factory ride. see if that's gonna help me. No, honestly, I just want to go up and actually have a fitness test. He have a John Wickfield, which is the South African trainer for Calvin for many, many years. Also the trainer for Bora Red Bull factory World Tour team. And he have all the facilities up there. So I really want to go and set up my bike and actually make a condition test, because I haven't made that, I don't know. Yeah, that must have been like 18 years ago. I have made a condition test. So, not because I have to use it for anything, but I'm a little bit curious to see what kind of shape I'm in, because I feel pretty good. I'm not a world championship, super level rider, or I'm not a world tour, Tour de France rider or anything. But I think, I'm turning 50 next year, and I feel so far away from being 50. And I just want to confirm if that's the right feeling that I have, because I do not feel any different from when I was 35, or even when I stopped my racing career. I have, well, maybe it will come. Maybe something would, can hit me over the next couple of years but I do not feel any different. And I just I think it's just interesting to analyze yourself a little bit and see, where could I actually be better? Because that's something, when old people talk about pension and they talk about, retiring and everything else, I'm just thinking like I just need goals all the time. I need to see, I need to set goals, I need to do things. I don't even think, I don't think I even would like to be, retiring, as a person and think what I'm gonna do now. Now I'm gonna sit down and relax for 20 years. We'll see how well that's gonna go down with your body, using your body all your life. So being all the time, active and doing things and creating things and working with writers, it's such a nice thing. It keeps me focused and hopefully also keep me young, in my body, but also in my mind. And that's the way I want to keep it. And I like to challenge myself. Even sometimes I can feel that we don't quite agree what's going on in my head and what's going on in my body. We don't quite talk the same language sometimes. Sometimes I get the feeling that in some nice words, you're saying, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing all this? Going to work and then getting up early in the morning and do cycling and then go to work again and then traveling and then coming back. But this is how my life always have been. And for a lot of people, that would be a stress factor, but it's kind of a normality. And I guess it's about one of the things of getting in shape and doing things is that you've got to create your life as a perspective of a normality, so the more that you do it, the more you create routines for yourself, you're more easy and you less stress factor is going to do all those things because it's just something that you do. So that could maybe be advice for people. So, don't go stressed about things. It's just kind of getting used to that stress and stress can be, feeling in a good way or feeling in a bad way. Stress for me is because like I'm traveling a lot, I'm doing a lot of things, but it's also something that I enjoy, because I get the effect out of for what I'm doing with work. So it's not really stressful. It's just a lot of things to do instead of calling it stress. But now I have to go up and make a cup of tea, I think, and then finally go to bed so I can get up cycling tomorrow morning. But it was really great to speak with you and having this opportunity to kind of give out my point of view of Motocross Nation, and hopefully some people have enjoyed to listen to it.
Oh, mate, it was absolutely awesome as usual. Really appreciate you taking the time in the busy schedule. And before I let you go, I thank the partners in 24MX, Dirt Store, Fuchs Silkaline, and Dragon Energy for all their incredible support, as without them, none of this would be possible. All right, that's been Brian Jorgensen, mate. Thanks again. All the best. We look forward to speaking soon.
Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers.
Have a good one.